design really is interesting and it's really cool. And, when you start talking about the real estate world, and obviously architecture being a huge part of that, and start talking about the built environment and realize how spaces and architecture, how they build community and how people organize themselves around spaces.
Hi, this is Jack Baldwin with Reynard Architectural Designs, and you're listening to By Design. It's our podcast about architecture, creativity, and entrepreneurship. I'm joined with Kalyn Kight today. Kalyn, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. Visiting some family today, so it's a good Friday morning.
My friend Tobars Dobbs. Tobars, how are you?
I'm doing absolutely amazing, Jack. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Where are you calling in from?
So the sunny area of, it was definitely not the beach in Kight Island, that's for sure. But I'm in East Point, Georgia right now.
East Point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you're a native Atlantan, aren't you?
No, actually, no. I'm actually from Augusta, Georgia, but I've been here for so long. I've been here, since 1987.
Native Georgian.
Yeah, I am native Georgian. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're really excited to have you on today. We're going to get to your story here in just a minute, but to kind of give you a little bit of an intro, Tobars is actually the first client that Reynard Architectural Designs worked with. So this is kind of a special episode. Congratulations, Tobars.
Yeah.
It's kind of a special episode, special conversation for us personally. A lot's changed and grown in the past year, but it all started for our company when we met with Tobars on Shirley Street over in West Atlanta. Pulled up to a really rundown little house, and we're going to talk about the story. We're going to tell the story of that house and what became of it, and what part Tobars played in getting it to look as beautiful and awesome as it does today. So Tobars, we're really excited to have you here today.
Yeah.
Same here. It's an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity to get me to come on and share my story with the By Design podcast. It's pretty amazing. Kalyn, it's great to talk to you as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Same to you, Tobars.
Absolutely.
And so we'll go ahead and jump in. So Tobars, we typically like to start with the origin story question. So tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, let's see. I was born way back. No, I'm joking. So I know, and Jack asked earlier if I was a native of Georgia, and I kind of missed the question a bit. I said I am. Actually, I was born in Milwaukee, but I was born in Milwaukee, grew up in Arkansas, and was raised in Augusta, Georgia. So at the age of 7, I moved to Georgia. So I kind of considered Georgia as home.
Give it to you.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I'm actually from Augusta, Georgia, and it's interestingly enough, probably about 10, 11, maybe 12 years old, I played the game of Monopoly for the first time and literally just got entranced by the game. Yeah. And, fast forward a few years, finished high school. It was time to go to college. Came to Atlanta to attend Morehouse College and didn't know what I was going to do. And so I did what was in the media every day, which was computers. So, computers is going to be the future. So I said, okay, I'm going to study computer science. Well, after 3 years of that, I realized that I did not want to study computer science. And I had that, what I consider every college student goes through, which I've coined the Great Awakening, where you come to yourself and realize that, hey, I'm going down the wrong road. And so I remember very distinctly in the summer of, I believe it was 1990, I had my Great Awakening experience and realized that computer science was not the route for me. And I just really spent time thinking about what is it that I really enjoy. And I thought back to childhood and playing Monopoly.
That's fun.
And it was real estate. And so I changed my major to real estate. Life has been wonderful ever since.
That's really cool.
Awesome.
It's funny how, like, we talked to James about when he first realized he wanted to be an architect, and it was about the same age. You know, it's funny how those formative years really don't leave you. They come back all these years later.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's true for every single person on the planet. You know, they may not, you know, be conscious of it or even aware of it, but if they take some time to just reflect on their childhood and childhood thoughts, ambitions, dreams, visions, so on and so forth, they will find it like whatever they're doing today, and for the most part, was probably
whatever you get that pure joy from.
Exactly.
That's cool, man. Well, so let's so we flash back to a little bit of the bio of Tobars. You're in Atlanta, but now let's flash back to 2021, when you and I first met. We were both wearing masks at the time, so we didn't even really get to see our faces.
That was crazy.
I think Meg Riley was with me that day. And we pull up to this house at Shirley Street, and it was not too pretty.
It was a dump. Yeah.
But I remember walking around in that house, and what struck me about you, Tobars, was right then you saw something. I think you had a real clear vision. Even before we started putting a pencil to a sheet of paper, you were starting to articulate a vision that you had for this house. So tell us the story of Shirley Street. How'd you find the home, and what was your vision?
Yeah, very, very good question. I'm glad you asked, Jack. So, you know, interestingly enough, that neighborhood, which is specifically called Westview, I actually used to live in that neighborhood. I actually used to live on Westwood Avenue, which is literally one street over. We bought our first home that my family lived in from Maynard Jackson, a past mayor of Atlanta. He's no longer living. But yeah, we actually bought a home that he owned. He owned a lot of houses in that neighborhood. And one of the houses that we bought, it was one of his. So I really love that neighborhood. We probably lived in the house for the better part of maybe 10 years. The neighborhood is very different than what it is today, as you can imagine. And, you know, we began to start having children. My wife, you know, wanted to move just because of just feeling comfortable. And so we moved, but, you know, I still had love for that neighborhood and really the entire West End, because as you know, Westview is in the West End neighborhood. And having went to school at Morehouse College, which is, you know, a few miles away, having stayed on Atwood Street as a college student, which is a few blocks away. I literally met my wife in the West End community. We got married at the Hammond's house, which is in the West End. So I'm like really tied to the West End area. And the property on Westview is, on Shirley Street. Just so happened, that was literally the third house that I actually did in that neighborhood. So yeah, I'm very familiar with all the houses in that little neighborhood. And just really driving by that house and seeing it on the corner, and seeing the way that it was positioned on the lot, you know, I knew that, you know, I could do something really nice right there with that house on that corner, and it would look amazing right there at that stop sign, you know, but at the corner of Rogers and Shirley Street. And, you know, I just envisioned an amazing contemporary modern style home right there on that corner, you know, kind of juxtaposed to the street. And so that was really the vision of it, you know, is to really create an amazing property. You know, and because I've done other properties in the neighborhood, you know, I knew what the values are, partly because I've helped set the values over there. On other projects that I've completed and sold. So it only made sense that I continue that with this particular property.
I love that. Yeah.
Yes. And what year was that original home built? And it was in the 50s?
I believe it was like 53, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
So 53, Meg Riley, who's our interior designer, she was still in college at the time. And this was like one of the first times she had ever been out on a job site with me. And I got her to go into that house. And I was surprised that she wanted to keep working with us afterwards.
Right.
You know, there was a lot left. It looked abandoned, but you saw some potential in it. And I remember just walking through and observing the space. And I wish we had more photos of that space originally, but it's night and day different. What you did, you took that one story, you know, kind of a ranch style, it was a single story home.
Mhm.
You kept a lot of the original brick. So the entryway has the original brick on the east side of the house. When you're facing the house, there's the original brick that you kept intact and built around. But you expanded the home up. And opened it up. So it was a very closed floor plan to begin with. There's a narrow hallway with, what was it, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms?
You know, it was really a 2-bedroom, 1 bath for the most
It was
part.
a small house.
Yeah.
And now you have 4?
Yeah, 4 bedrooms, 4 baths.
Yeah.
Wow.
With 4 decks.
4 decks. That was the other thing I love about the design. So yeah, taking this very narrow, small home, expanding it out, really open floor plan, exposed staircase that you can see inside of the house. We have some amazing pictures that you shared with us that are on our website that people can see. And there's a video that we just published of the interiors. The interiors look great too.
Yeah.
But let's talk about kind of your design ideas. You said contemporary modern. What does that mean for you when you hear contemporary modern?
You know, honestly, Jack, this is actually my first contemporary modern remodel.
Okay.
And you guys did an amazing job designing it. You know, because to be honest, with it being my first, I did not really have all the ideas, right? I just knew that I wanted to do a modern design, and you guys like just, you know, knocked it out the park. Yeah, I did know, because obviously the house is rectangle, you know, or is rectangular in shape, and the way it faces the street kind of juxtapose. You know, I vision, you know, the second story. You know, I vision, you know, decks. But in terms of how all that came together, I wasn't 100% sure.
Right.
That's where you guys came in, and really, it didn't take many takes on the design. I think really the first concept nailed the exterior. I think we went a couple different takes, you know, kind of organizing the layout inside. But for the most part, I mean, you guys just knocked out the park, and it really captured everything that I wanted in a contemporary modern design.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good to hear. Obviously, is that's our, you know, our product, you know, and so that's always encouraging to hear.
Absolutely. And you know, it's interesting because, you know, it's like at the beginning of the podcast, you had mentioned that I was you guys' first client. You know, it didn't dawn on me until just a second ago when I mentioned that this is actually my first modern, you know, my first contemporary modern project. You know, I mean, I've done many real estate projects over the years, but you know, it's for the most part, it's been, you know, mostly craftsman bungalows. You know, I've done some farmhouse stuff. I've done some farmhouse contemporary / contemporaries, but nothing pure contemporary modern. So yeah, I guess it's kind of first for both of us.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I like currently the new home that you transformed Shirley Street into is very eye-catching from the street. And you're right, it's got a rectangular shape already built into the existing structure, and you really remain true to that footprint to start with, and then turned it into something that's got mixed materials on the outside. So there's some really nice wood siding next to the other type of geometric siding that you've put next to it. I like that contrast and color and the contrast in materials between the two. Let's talk about the rooftop decks though, because that's one of my favorite ways that you expanded the space. So again, you originally have a very small one-story home. I don't know, maybe 1,200 square feet tops.
Yeah, it was less. It was like I think it was right at 1,000, maybe 1,100 square feet.
Yeah, small home, and I think we expanded it quite a bit. I think you were a little over 3,000 once the project was completed. Is that right?
No, it wasn't that large actually. Interestingly enough, it looks like it's that large, because you guys did such an amazing job at utilizing the space. But to be honest, like the house is only 2,200 square feet.
Yeah,
specifically is 2,222.
Okay.
Yeah, but because the space was utilized so well, because of the high ceilings, because of all the decks, I mean, the house looks like it's 3,000 square feet, and everyone that's walked in the house, kind of says the same thing.
It feels bigger. I think having the higher ceilings and the open floor plan, the exposed staircase, all of those make it feel spacious.
Exactly.
And I was getting into the roof decks too. That's one of my favorite aspects of what you put together. So what was your concept there? How'd you come up with that concept?
Yeah, so the original house just had a carport, right?
Yeah.
And the first time I looked at the house, I said, you know what? I can build a second story on here, create a modern design, and put a deck over the garage. It's actually my first time putting a deck over a garage. So honestly, that's my most favorite part of the house, to be honest. Because it's just a great space for just entertaining, relaxing. And I get jealous every time I drive downtown, midtown, and see people hanging out on the rooftops, right? So I was like, this would be a great opportunity to to create a rooftop deck in addition to the other decks on the house, and it would just make the house just stand out even that much more.
Yeah, they look cozy. That's what I love about them is you're outdoors and you're among the trees. And even though you're surrounded by some other neighbors and some other houses, it feels very secluded.
Yeah.
It feels like a good little place to duck away. But you've got, how many? Is it 3 different decks around the house?
Four. Yes, 4 decks. Yes, there's a deck off the main living space. There's a deck off of the kind of a junior master bedroom downstairs. And then there's a deck off of the master suite or owner suite upstairs. And then you have the rooftop deck over the garage.
Yeah. Really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that will be the selling points of the house. I think it will be someone who loves to entertain and who says, I need these decks.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The rooftop deck alone, honestly, that's definitely a highlight, I would say. That's just this really cool idea. So, well, Tobars, I know you've done several types of home designs, architectural styles, but kind of like what type of style are you personally drawn to? I know that might be a difficult question, but you kind of have to do what's best for the area and things like that. But what are you attracted to, like architectural style wise?
That's a good question. And I would probably at this point have to say modern for sure. Contemporary modern.
Yeah.
I have fallen in love with contemporary modern style. And it doesn't hurt that, for whatever reason, they get a bump up in value. So I just kind of like the clean straight lines. I like the different contrasts with different types of materials. So my favorite would probably be contemporary.
Okay, awesome. That's kind of like I've kind of transitioned to where that's kind of my favorite as well. Is that like a recent transition that you're kind of leaning towards that as your personal favorite, or?
It is.
Okay.
It most certainly is. It is a little more challenging to deal with from a construction standpoint. as you can imagine.
Yep.
But yeah, I definitely have gravitated towards it. And, you know, I definitely have to kind of give kind of credit where credit is due. So there was a gentleman, and you all may know him. I don't know, maybe you all have done some work with him in the past, but he actually did the first modern design in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
His name is Jay Crawford.
Yeah, I do remember Jay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, Jay is the one that inspired me to start doing moderns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, one, because the modern that he did, literally 2 streets over, was one of the, you know, sold at one of the highest price points a few years ago in the neighborhood. And, you know, as a real estate investor, I was like,
Sure.
You're right.
You know, yeah. So, but aside from that, the house was just beautiful. And, you know, I met Jay and talked to him, and it's like realized that the house was sold before it was even finished. The project was finished. So that lets me know that, you know, people really like this style, this design. So yeah, he was the one that actually inspired me to literally do a modern house. And so this is my first one.
Okay.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Work with Jay. He's a great guy. Him and his wife, they do good work in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. They do some amazing projects.
So you mentioned inspiration, but when it comes to design, when it comes to architecture, what do you find inspiring, or even personally inspiring? You know, where do you draw some of your inspiration from? We talked a little bit about that, but just talk about your inspiration and the design process.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's really funny, right? Because for many years, I never really considered myself, you know, kind of being into design, right? You know, I would always kind of look to someone else when it came to design. But, you know, I've come to realize that I really do have, you know, interest in design, and I really do have, as you say, Jack, you know, influence, right? You know, as you can imagine, studying real estate, and seeing all different types of buildings and designs, you know, Frank Lloyd Wright's, you know, designs are just startling to me. And, you know, they just seem like they all tell amazing stories. And I think, you know, just thinking back on it, you know, seeing some of his stuff is really where I began to realize that design really is interesting and it's really cool. And, you know, when you start talking about the real estate world, you know, and obviously architecture being a huge part of that, and start talking about the built environment, and realize how spaces and architecture, you know, how they build community and how people organize themselves around spaces. You know, it's just a very interesting area, right? You know, design. So
I love what you said about.
I think I'm still developing my, you know, own thoughts about design, but I do know that it is critical. It plays a large role in, you know, how people really see themselves to some degree.
Well, I love that you've taken a personal kind of area, you know, and that Shirley Street is on, and that kind of area. You've done several homes there, but you're like really investing in that area, and that's just super cool to see.
Totally, absolutely. And you know, I mean, the area is quickly becoming just an amazing area of town. You know, I drive around now, and like there are some amazing projects being built all around that neighborhood. And you know, I would definitely like to think that I've had something to do with it.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, but I love what you said about it's an opportunity to build community and turning to a place that's special. You know, nobody else can bring that heart to it unless they really have some kind of investment or some kind of a personal attachment to something. It's more than just a transaction. It's more than something that just takes place. It's really leaving a legacy. When you are able to see that transformation happen, that's inspiring to me. I love that a space that was once forgotten or neglected has turned into a place that somebody's going to call home,
Yeah.
and start a new home and a new life, and be the new people that come into that community and care about it.
Yep.
And that's something special that you get to do with real estate, something special you get to do with architecture, with all the different small roles that we all get to play as individuals. That's what community is. It's collective. And what I love about working with you, Tobars, was we got to design with you.
Right.
The reason that you gave us a lot of credit, and we surely appreciate that. And you worked with the great guy Rich Bodrick on that project. That he did a great job of connecting with clients and understanding what they needed. But what made it go so well is when we have a client who's driven, who has a vision, who has inspiration, who has ideas. Because the better we are at hearing those ideas and the better you are at articulating them, that makes that process enjoyable but also efficient. You know what I mean? So having good clients goes a really long way too, to make that that process be painless. And it's frustrating. There's always going to be frustrations in the design process because we have budgets and deadlines and materials and costs, but really it should be fun.
Yeah.
And it really is fun when we get to work with people who have something that's that heartbeat going on. So we recognize that.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Also, and I should probably also mention Dana as well. You probably remember Dana. She's on my team. She's actually my realtor, actually / designer. She does some interior design stuff for me, and does a lot of the heavy lifting from just picking out different finishes and things like that. So I definitely have to give her some credit as well. But Jack, you mentioned kind of really caring about what you do and the difference that makes. And I just want to kind of circle back on that because that is so vitally important, right? And I remember when I met you for the first time at that project. It was evident to me that you cared about what you do. One, you were impeccably dressed. I have to say that, and then two, just the way that, the way that you spoke about the house, about the project, about, my vision, about the process. It was evident that you really cared about what you do, which meant a lot. And it's funny. I remember thinking, in the back of my head, because I think, if I recall correctly, you shared with me that you're just starting the company. And, it was no doubt in my mind. I was like, this guy's going to be successful. It's like, I'm looking forward to continuing to do business with him, just because the way that you were carrying yourself, the way you were operating your business, I could tell that you cared. And, it came out in the design that ultimately I got an opportunity to build. So I totally believe in that.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Those are kind words. I don't know what to say except that your enthusiasm is as good as the belief you have in your team. And I really feel like God blessed us with a good team, and that's what helps you get enthusiastic about what you're doing. When I know that you're going to be partnering with somebody who's going to get you good results, it makes it really easy to bring you into that conversation. But
Nice.
The story of the house is great. It's a new beginning, not just for that home, but for that community in West End. Getting to be a part of that new beginning I think that's a big part of what architecture is all about, whether it's renovating a house or an empty lot. It's a new beginning. And it's hard to fake your enthusiasm for those stories. But the story of that home in Shirley Street, a place that was forgotten, that's now beautiful, from the grass and the mulch outside to the lighting on the outside to the 4 decks, and everything about that home just exudes that care and just some timelessness and looking forward. I see a lot of that, like kind of that visionary type of feeling when I see that house. I think about forward looking. It's inspiring to me too.
Nice.
So, how can people stay connected with you? What anybody listening to the podcast, the By Design podcast, they're like, this Tobars guy sounds awesome. I want to follow up with them. How do they do that?
Very cool. Very cool. Really a couple ways. If you do still use Facebook, people can kind of connect with me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page at Real Estate Profiting. And that's
profiting.
Real Estate Profiting. Yes, that's profiting ing. Real Estate Profiting. And also on Instagram as well. It's just my name, Tobars Dobbs. Tobars Dobbs.
Well, what I find inspiring about your story today is somebody who maybe started on one path, got to a point where they were reminded of what their real calling was by a game of Monopoly,
right?
Of all things.
All games.
But a great context to connect like what you're driven by. And I think anybody listening to your story could think, hey, if I actually listened, to the things I get most passionate about, or the things that I'm most keenly interested in, maybe that's something that God's pulling me in some kind of a direction to respond to. And in your case, you responded to that and turned it into a successful business, made some successful connections, some good connections with the community, with the people around you. So when I called you and asked you about doing this podcast, you're like, I've never done that before, but you're was like, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And
absolutely,
I think you can't fake that. It's when you really are in line with what's getting you going. That's what brings you to these kind of conversations. So we're going to drop some links to that Facebook page and that Instagram page that you mentioned into our show notes so that people can stay connected with you. We always want people who listen to these interviews to come away with understanding something about our guests so that they can, make some new connections. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah. Super. Well, I appreciate it, Jack. I appreciate it, Kalyn.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure to kind of be on the podcast with you guys.
Likewise.
You guys are doing some amazing work. And I'm looking forward to doing some more projects with you guys.
Yeah. What you got up? You got any exciting projects you want to plug, or anything you're working on next?
Just some stuff that I'm finishing up, and then just kind of ready to kind of take a vacation, to be very honest. I absolutely appreciate it. And if I could just say one last thing to anyone that may be listening, if you're looking for an amazing architectural firm, look no further than Reynard Architecture. Okay. They're amazing. And I can't speak more highly of them. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Man.
Thank you, Tobars. Yeah.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys for having me on. I've had a blast.